I believe that our generation must know that the beast of the event is there. And it's coming.
In the movie Usual Suspect, Kaiser Sosa tells us that the most cunning trick the devil has ever managed to do is to make us believe that he doesn't exist. Among the topics that leave room for many speculations and different interpretations, there is this famous number, 666, the 666. It's this mysterious mark of the beast described in the Apocalypse according to St. John. Last prophetic book of the New Testament, also called the Book of Revelation, because let's remember, the etymological origin of the word apocalypse comes from the ancient Greek apokalypsis 6, which means revelation. While today the apocalypse is synonymous with the end of the world, in this video we'll see that it's not actually the case. So it would be a moment of great revelation, and in the video we're gonna see what's hidden behind the number 666, what's hidden behind the beast, or who's hidden behind the beast, as well as this number 666 that sticks to his skin. All this happens right away after the credits. And as always, before getting to the heart of the matter, we welcome new subscribers to the channel and those who follow me on Facebook and Instagram, as well as those who want to give a little boost to the channel by supporting me on Tipeee. Since we're already talking about numbers, let's lay the digital foundations of the thing. In biblical symbolism, 7 is perfection and 6 is imperfection. The 666, on the other hand, is used to hammer home the imperfection. So we are right in the middle of evil. Why? Because outside of the Trinity in the Bible, the number 3 is used to signify totality. Through the 3 timeless dimensions, the past, the present, and the future. In Revelation chapter 13, verse 16 and 17, it is written that the beast caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their forehead, and that no one could buy or sell unless they had the mark, the name of the beast, or the number of its name. And in verse 11, it reads, "Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, which had 2 horns like a lamb, and spoke like a dragon." The dragon is none other than Satan, who will use this beast to dominate the world. And the link between the devil and the dragon, it's something we've already discussed on the channel, in the video dedicated to Dracula, to the legend of Dracula, which you can find the link to in the description. But then, this mark that will be put on us, what is it? Today, many people might say, surely they will inject us with nanotechnology through the COVID vaccine. At the end of the day, why not? Everyone can have their own view on things. Let's not forget that 20 years ago, the discussion wasn't about nanotechnologies, but rather subcutaneous chips. During May 1968, we discussed tattoos. So we must not forget that in the end, we always contextualize, we always interpret in a contemporary way what this mark could be. So in the end, I want to say that it's none of that. Projecting into the future, it's not impossible in 10 or 20 years. That the people of the future, of which we are obviously a part, could say that this mark of the beast, its cryptocurrencies or things like that, we would be forced to create ourselves with our smartphones. Anyway, all this to say that the mark of the beast, our interpretation, is always focused in our time. However, because of the mercantile aspect of this story, which is described in the Bible, we could indeed think that one day or another all this would happen. But honestly guys, they don't need to implant anything in us to try to force us to do things or to know everything about us. What does this beast look like then? Have you seen it? In chapter 13, verse 1, we read, "Then I saw rising from the sea a beast that had 10 horns and 7 heads. And on these horns 10 crowns, and on these heads names of blasphemy." Verse 2, "The beast I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like those of a bear, and its mouth like a lion's mouth. The dragon gave it his power and his throne and great authority." We are indeed facing a symbolic figure, and there is no reason that the mark of the beast should not be symbolic as well. But our somewhat Cartesian minds, in search of tangibles, quite logically prefer to find a rational explanation, physically, materially transposable in our lives. And what do we know about the biblical writings on this mark, 666? Still in Revelation chapter 13 verse 18, we read that this is wisdom. "Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is a number of a man, and his number is 666. The mark of the beast is mentioned in the Bible in chapters 14, 16, 19, and 20 of Revelation. Instead of an exhaustive reading, which would be a bit indigestible for you, there is something that summarizes this very well, and that is mentioned in chapter 14 in verses 9 to 11. If anyone worships the beast and its image and receives a mark on his forehead or his hand, he too will drink of the wine of the wrath of God poured without mixture into the cup of his anger, and he will be tormented in fire and sulfur. And the smoke of their torment ascends forever and ever. And they have no rest, neither day nor night, those who worship the beast and his image, and whoever receives the mark of his name. So this mark, the 666, it's really the expression of evil. So at the limit, it's not very surprising if everyone gets into big debates like this. Who would link the mark of the beast, the mark of the devil, and evil to a kind of global dictatorship that would be about to fall upon us? Yet, if we look at the terms used in the Bible, this mark is never imposed. It is either received or given. So we are either in agreement or outright proactive in going to get it. A little contradictory with this collective unconscious that wants us to be forced to do something when we talk about the mark of the beast. For those who draw parallels with our current world, we would therefore be much closer to satanic rites of faithful praising the glory of evil and the devil, than a global dictatorship trying to impose this mark on us.
The beast of the event is here. And it's coming.
We could digress and wonder what lies behind this modern devil, such as, for example, the worship of money as the only companion on the journey. Because yes, we are not forced to take or receive this mark, but if it is a sine qua non condition for life, we can also say in a way that it is a masked coercion. And if we place ourselves in a still contemporary context and study the biblical text more precisely, yes, we are ostracized without this mark of the beast. Revelation 13:15 mentions that he was granted power to give life to the beast's image, enabling it to speak, which it did. That all who would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So, at the limit, I can well imagine a kind of digital dictatorship of whatever nature, but I have a little trouble imagining a dictatorship that causes people to be killed. In any case, on a large scale, if they do not submit to this image of the beast, to this new domination of the devil. But consider the historical context and the persecutions of the time, which we'll discuss later in the video. This mark could symbolize the authorization that some Christians had to trade. Those who lacked it could not then integrate into economic life, or even outright did not have the right to live, if we rely solely on Apocalypse 13:15. So there really is a cult of evil, a cult of the devil, and when we put all this into perspective with the worship of God, well, it would indeed seem that the 666 and this beast and the mark of the beast, and well is in dialectic with divine belief. If there is a dialectic, and that the mark of the beast concerns evil, shouldn't there also be a mark of God or of good? And that is the case. There is the seal of God that no one talks about, because we always focus only on the 666. The seal of God is mentioned in the Gospel, according to St. John the Baptist, in the Corinthians, in the Ephesians, and many others. And in this case, the seal is always spiritual and refers to belief. And the fact that it refers to belief, that's something very important to keep in mind, because we will shortly discuss the persecutions experienced by Christians. So more than a prophetic vision like that, diabolical and well, we are also anchored in the present of the time. Another question we can ask ourselves is whether we are chosen to worship the beast after having received or requested the mark. Or is the worship of the beast a mandatory prerequisite to be worthy of receiving its mark? And when we think about these steps, whatever their order and nature, and we think about the modern worship I was talking a little bit about earlier, we can also think about these closed groups with structured hierarchies which have stages or rites within their functioning. He said the Freemasons were Satanists, but you misinterpreted my words. I never said that. Because it's not just the Freemasons who have a hierarchy and well-established rites within their functioning. So we talked about the number 666. We also talked about groups composed of humans. Yes, humans. You know, they're a kind of bipedal species with an upright stance. Well, yes, it's true that today they sometimes resemble more the zombies we see in the 2013 film Her. This film, well, damn, it was only released in 2013, just 8 years ago. But at the time, it wasn't necessarily considered a prophetic film, but it was almost considered science fiction. Watch this film, you'll see that we're completely in 2021. In summary, there is a person associated with the number 666. This human, it's Nero. Yeah, like you. No, I just have a big nose. I don't have the Nero. So Nero, 5th and last Roman emperor of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. He reigned from the year 54 to the year 68 of our era. He was an unpleasant emperor, not someone you'd enjoy a banana split grenadine with. Unless you recognize him as your god, which would entitle you to a potential certificate of recognition allowing you to trade. Because yes, Nero, in fact, he wanted to be recognized by the people as a god on earth. A little bit like the Egyptian pharaohs. Even though they did not want to be recognized, they were intrinsically recognized as the gods on earth, except that Nero, that was it. But rather, in a bastard version. In 1948, the Catholic Biblical Quarterly published an article about this topic. Patrick Skihane proposes the following, which is very interesting and reflects the numbers discussed at the beginning of the video. Before discussing 666, we'll revisit 777. The good. The English values designating Jesus, namely King of Kings and Lord of Lords, has a gematria value of 777. What is a gematria value? Are you gonna tell me? It comes from gematria, which is a Kabbalistic science using the numerical value of each letter of a word or a Hebrew phrase. And this number 777 is also valid for the French term the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. So Jesus, it's the absolute good. And this contrasts completely with Nero, who would represent the 666. We will see right away why. The name of Caesar Nero in Hebrew indeed gives 666. Empowered by his brutal persecution of Christians, who justified by rejecting them the responsibility for the fire of Rome that took place from the 18th to the 23rd of July, 64. It is not surprising that the Antichrist hidden behind the identity of the beast could be Nero, and this pagan Antichrist, it's not necessarily synonymous with the end of the world, but perhaps simply the end of the Christian world as we knew it. Suffocated by the yoke of violence and persecutions imposed by Nero, the Christians, marked with the physical seal of Nero, the Antichrist, would be in conceptual opposition with the spiritual seal of believers we were talking about before. But, even more surprising, in Hebrew, the word that defines the beast, its gematria value too, is 666. If Rome experienced this immense fire, yet today, there are remains of a writing found in the Casana Tense Library, one of the most beautiful libraries in the world. It is in this library that fragments of a book of Revelation, written in Latin and Hebrew, found during excavations in Egypt, are carefully preserved. And it is the Latin text that more firmly outline the sketches of this interpretation, leading to the identification of the person. In Latin, the number behind 666 is no longer 666, but 616. In principle, that should ruin everything. Well, no, because in Latin, Caesar Nero gives exactly 616. So here we are a bit like Champollion in front of the Rosetta Stone. Although that, we must admit, we never talk about. Small digression from the alchemist Abubakar ibn Wachia, from whom Champollion would have stolen a huge part of a work dating 800 years before him. So in short, we have a text in two versions. And when we talk about Nero, sometimes in Hebrew, sometimes in Latin, the geometric values of each are those found in these texts preserved in Rome. So Nero, it's possible, but there's another question, almost blasphemous. And what if the 666 actually identified Jesus Christ himself? We will also use geometric values there. Revelation 13:18 states that his number is 666. Except that at the time, John, he didn't write all this in numbers. So we transpose with the Latin alphabet, and each letter then gets a value. From 1 to 10, from 10 to 100, etc. So the 666 is 666. Chi, Shi, Stigma. We need to shift our perspective. This is no longer about the Antichrist, evil, the devil, or Satan. Here we are really in belief we are with Jesus. And that's why we need to consider the fish that represents Christianity, which we call ichthus, ichthus. Here are its letters iota, Xi, theta, epsilon, and sigma. For each letter, there is a word iota. It's Jesus. Xi is Christ, theta is God, epsilon the Son, and sigma the Savior. So ichthus, it's Jesus Christ, Son of God, the Savior. And in Christian writings, we often find Jesus defined by the letters K and S, which signify the stigmata of Christ. But 666, it's Kansas stigmata of Christ, between which the 11 interposes, like the image of the serpent. And what does that mean? That means the 666. So it could also mean that the devil will present himself in the form of Christ Kansas, but secretly animated by the vile personality of the serpent. So the evil embodied by the devil could present itself as Jesus Christ. This brings us back to the dialectic between God and Satan, good and evil, discussed at the start of the video. So yes, in fact we don't know anymore, but at least we have Nuanced in this video. What are the different interpretations that hold up in relation to 666, the mark of the beast? And what is it hiding behind? Is it an end of the world, or is it simply a shift to another part of the world, into evil? And as always, it mainly allows us to realize that there is not one, but always many possible truths. And once again, I leave it to you to form your own opinion to know a little bit where you stand in relation to all this. Thanking you for watching the video to the end. I'll see you very soon for our next meeting on the channel. Until then, as always, take care, and above all, don't forget to keep the passion. Bye bye.